What do I do?
Guys, hey, how are you?
Can't see.
You able to see?
Yeah.
And that's when I told Darren Bush, Manimal is the greatest TV show in history. Nothing? Nothing from the Darren Bush peanut gallery? That's fine. That is totally fine.
30 seconds.
So, anywho, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the American Sci-Fi Classics track. Quarantine panels. We are here doing our thing because we can't go outside and do things. And tonight, we are talking about the anniversary, the 90-year anniversary of Nancy Drew. My name is Joe Crow. I'm the co-director of the American Sci-Fi Classics track. Technically speaking, a lot of Nancy's stories, not particularly science fiction-y, but they were printed in books and people use their imaginations on them, so it counts. That's what I'm doing. That's how we're doing it. So one internet away from me, both of my guests tonight are brand new to the quarantine panels, and but I don't think. Have you guys been to Miss Nadyne? I believe has Darren dragged you to Dragon Con at some point?
Yes, he has.
All right. But you don't have to have attended Dragon Con to be on our quarantine panels because the convention is in your house at this point. And just like at conventions, I expect all of you to charge $7 for hamburgers.
Okay, and $5 for
from here on out.
Yeah.
When you make hamburgers, it's $7, and you have to stand in line for an hour and a half. So here is what we're doing. Let me go around to all of our guests, and one internet away from me, to my left, Miss Jessica Nettles. Just tell everybody who you are and where you're from.
I'm Jessica Nettles. I am the author of an upcoming book from Falstaff Books. My publisher has not decided on a name yet. I still want to yell at him about that. John, I'm looking at you, man. It's coming out next year, and I write horror and a little sci-fi and dabble in a little bit of everything. I have come to Dragon Con many times, and I'm just like beyond excited to be here. Just really excited. This is my first panel ever.
No way.
First Dragon Con panel. So, yay.
That is so good. Well, we thank you for making us your first. Let me add our co-director. And there he is, Mr. Gary Mitchell. How are you?
I have a sneaking suspicion that there might be something suspicious going on.
See? Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
We should investigate.
I think so.
It's
Definitely.
up the stairs. Yeah, you go first, Gary. You go first. But always send Gary first.
Yes.
Gosh, what am I saying? Oh, okay. Let's see. All right. One internet away from me is Jessica. Two internets away from me is our co-director, Gary Mitchell. How are you, sir?
I am well. It was delayed because my roommates and I do a movie night, and we started early. And then we got to talking, as nerds do. But it was actually my roommate's first time ever watching John Carpenter's The Thing, which is my favorite movie.
Oh, see, yeah.
So
I would have allowed you. We would have allowed you to let that resonate with. And our fourth tonight, making her American Sci-Fi Classics quarantine panel debut, Miss Nadyne. How are you, ma'am?
I'm doing well, thank you. And thank you very much for the invite. I'm really looking forward to this. As you can see behind.
Yeah, we're still figuring out these whole directions.
So I'm prepared.
Well, let's see. Gary, was there a fifth that might want to join us?
Yes, indeed. Miss Deanna was wanting to join.
Well, let me send her an invitation, and you guys start talking about Nancy Drew.
Who wants to go first?
Oh, wow.
No pressure.
No pressure at
No
all.
pressure at all.
All right, so Jessica, if for
Yes.
anyone who's been living under a rock for like the last 90 years, who is Nancy Drew?
Nancy Drew is a teenage detective. She is a teenage girl detective, which is very important because there really weren't any characters like her, I don't think, before she was created. She's 90 years old this year, but she still looks great. Has an awesome car, has an awesome boyfriend, has a life that I think pretty much any little girl would look at and go, or anybody would go, that's pretty cool. Her dad's a lawyer. I think he later on becomes a judge. Her mother is dead. And she goes out and finds all kinds of trouble to get into and mysteries to solve, and we follow her along, and it's pretty cool. She has two best friends, George and Bess. I always wanted to be George because I kind of felt like I identified with her. Yeah. So she's very cool.
I have read some. When I confess, I've read some Nancy Drews, but that was because the Hardy Boys were checked out. But that's only because I am male and an idiot. Nancy Drew is kind of better than the Hardy Boys in a lot of ways. What's Miss Nadyne? What's your Nancy Drew experience?
I'm trying to remember, it's been a while, without giving my age away, but I was trying to remember when I discovered her, but I think I was probably preteen. And much like Jessica said, she was just this cool chick that lived in a world that was believable, but it was not my world. So it was kind of fun to escape into that and follow her around and being horse crazy whenever there was one of her books involving, a horse or being on a ranch or something. I mean, I was there.
Mm-hmm. So would you say then that because there's a lot of girls fiction that most of it seems to revolve around horses or what the Babysitter's Club or what people expect little girls to be. So do you think that's why people gravitate to Nancy Drew, that she was different, or would you disagree with that premise?
I don't know if different is the right word. I think for preteen girls, I think they're looking for role models, and I think that's more the case than her being different. I think for me, and I'm trying to dig back too, because I started reading, I think I read my first when I was 9. I found the first book in the library, and then my parents subscribed me because during the 70s, there was a period where I forget what company it was, but they would send you could join the club, and for a monthly fee, they would send you these books. And so you'd get 2 of them every month. It was awesome. And I wish I still had them. I wish I still had those books. But that's how I read most of the series. But I don't know if she was different. Maybe it was that I had never encountered a character like that to that point. And it was the 70s, and there wasn't a lot of, I don't know that there was a lot of girl fiction that involved girls going and putting themselves in danger voluntarily.
Yeah. We didn't have the Nancy Drew in our public library. I was in a large town, and for whatever reason, they didn't stock them. But a friend of a friend from school gave me one of the Trixie Belden books, and I got hooked on those. And I think, I bug my parents every week for, I've already read it. Can I please have the money to go get another Trixie Belden book?
Yeah. Now, Nancy Drew, I believe, has been continually published most of these years, and probably to today even. I know that there is a graphic novel company called Paper Cuts that has published Nancy Drew graphic novels, if I'm not mistaken. But and those are very, very good. My teenage daughter. Why do I call her my teenage daughter? I only have the one, but
That you know of.
Yeah, that I know of. But the Nancy Drew, my first encounter with Nancy Drew outside the books. Well, I think I probably saw the TV show before I saw the books, and I believe the TV show was in it was a twofer on Sunday night.
Yes,
with the Hampton Hardy Boys.
Yeah,
it was the Hardy Boys with
Parker Stevenson and Sean Cassidy. That's right. Yeah,
yes.
I remember these things.
That's what you remember, not when you paid your rent or no.
I remember these things. See, this is why I'm a nerd.
Exactly. No, those I have not revisited them, but I remember thinking those shows were just the best. And the Nancy Drew stuff was super neat to me. She was just a more interest. She had more stuff going on than
more stuff.
Than the Hardy Boys did. And I liked the actress Pamela Sue Martin, of course, but because she was. Now, a cool thing, I have not seen all the episodes. There's a new Nancy Drew TV series, and Pamela Sue Martin is in it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, plays Nancy's aunt, if I'm not mistaken. So I approve of the fact that they have reached into the archives and made that connection. But the books, was she in danger of being murdered at any point? Was it villain?
I think the worst that ever happened is that she was kidnapped. I think at one point. I think, but no murder. I don't think murder ever really. It never got that violent.
No,
that was my question.
Or put in the cistern in that one, the one about Larkspur, because I just finished that one, and somebody pushed her, and there were some.
There were no sharp knives or guns involved.
No,
ever.
They were aimed very much at the teenage audience.
Yeah,
the level of danger that was acceptable for the time.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't like Mac Bolan with guns and but Nancy Drew in a Mac Bolan adventure would be great. She would solve the problem without Uzis, I'm guessing. But
probably rescue him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But my recollection of them short. But I did not recall that there was not so much danger. It was always just mysteries, right? It was now of course, I think in later years, they're probably, I'm guessing, Nancy Drew probably did venture into the supernatural at some point. I don't think they probably stayed the same. But the early times, back in the olden days, it was just, isn't there there's a term for those kind of mysteries now, like just a little town and a mystery, and they're called
cozy. Usually they're cozy mysteries.
There you go. And I'm guessing Nancy was that.
She comes pretty close. Yeah.
So for the uninitiated, the standard Nancy Drew mystery, though, would pretty much be like the very first one is The Secret of the Old House, if I'm not mistaken. So there's just sort of a mystery, and she gets involved. So Nadyne, break down like the average Nancy Drew book.
Oh.
What is the hook that keeps pulling people back?
I think that there's always a mystery, no matter what it is. They follow her, no matter what she's doing, no matter where she is. There's always something, and it's always interesting. Whether it's some little old lady being held captive, or she's helping to save somebody's ranch, or there's always, and there's multiple layers to it too, which I think was always interesting. It wasn't just one thing. There were layers built into it. So there was a piece of jewelry, or there was a note, or there was always this mysterious stranger, or something like that. And then, of course, she always had her cohort. So she had her two friends, as Jessica mentioned, as well as the boys that are on the periphery. I think it's much later that she actually kisses somebody, but it's usually pretty platonic, but they're sort of paired up. And so for the preteen crowd, that's sort of a little bit of, oh, she has a boyfriend. And she has a cool life. I mean, she has a housekeeper, which, I think most preteen girls, you don't have a housekeeper. And, she's 16 years old, and she has a great car, and she has a convertible. And I mean, I've been thinking a lot about this, and she was not, she was likable. She wasn't, it was campy, but it was campy cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she wasn't like the Scooby Gang who were out looking for a mystery. She was more as I may get this name wrong. Doreen Bruce says something about Jessica Fletcher. They just sort of follow her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she falls into these things. Crazy things apparently always happen in her little tiny town. All the mysteries happen there.
Again, that's very Murder, She Wrote like, as
very much.
As I don't know, Nadyne, if you're familiar with this guy.
I was thinking that, Darren.
But I got to say that maybe what we're looking at is maybe, much like Jessica Fletcher, maybe Nancy Drew was the cause. Maybe it was on her. Maybe that was the reason.
She was doing this for attention, right? Because
yes.
All that damage from losing her mom, she had,
Right.
and her dad's working all the time. How does she get his attention? There you go.
Well, speaking of acting out and making your parents insane, apparently, I have learned. I was today years old. I've learned that in 1986, a new series of Nancy Drew titles appeared, and they tried to make her more mature and have lots of kissing and stuff in it. And let me just say, I'm not prepared for that. I don't approve. There's a picture on her Wikipedia page of Nancy in a swimsuit, and it's called the Hit and Run Holiday.
Oh my gosh.
And one of the quotes is, "I saw you kissing him. You don't have to apologize to me if some guy turns you on. Wait a minute. Shut it down." That's I'm not ready. They're not cool, man. Hang on. Boop, right there. But yeah, they so that was a thing apparently, and say the Nancy Drew character in the Nancy Drew Files. This apparently they lasted from the 80s all throughout most of the 90s, and she all the covers have attractive males in the backgrounds, and Nancy is often chloroformed or put in chokeholds.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
It's nice. That is nice. And the books place more emphasis on violence. And so that's fun. Yeah, I'm glad that and in 1997, Simon & Schuster announced a mass cancellation of Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys books. except for the ones for younger children. Surprise. That worked out better. That worked out much better.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, in 2003, let's see, 2007, I apologize, 2005 was when those paper cuts, graphic novels came out. And 2003 is when they relaunched Nancy Drew as Nancy Drew Girl Detective. And she drives a hybrid car, uses a mobile phone, and let's see, yeah. So that's it's one of those things where I'm tickled that they. Do you guys think Nancy Drew can, in those cases? I have not read those newer books, but do you think Nancy Drew is a product of her time? Because we had this discussion last week on our Archie episode. Do you think she's a product of her era, or if you can just pick her up and place her anywhere?
I tend to lean towards she's a product of her time, but maybe it's because I'm old-fashioned and really like the old series. But even then, I mean, the series that probably Nadyne and I read isn't even the original series. So she was recast in the 50s. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the novels are drastically different. They did a lot of editing because the books in the 30s were. She was a little more spunky, and she was a lot less dependent on males to help her.
Okay.
She was much more independent. The 50s come along and they recast her as, hey, the 50s woman, which means she's going to be dependent on the dudes to come and rescue her. Yeah, they take some of her guts out. So maybe my argument of, yes, she's a product of her time and she can't be placed in other times, maybe I'm incorrect about that. I'm real uncomfortable with the idea of her having a cell phone. I don't know why. To me, it takes some of the peril away.
Yeah.
Some things happen in the books where if you give her a cell phone, she's going to get out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, cell phones are kind of for any mystery. I know quite a few mystery adjacent writers, and almost all of them hate cell phones because it is a easy. Well, why don't you just call so and so, or why don't you just look up this fact on your phone? I know that Jim Britcher strictly said in an interview one time the whole reason magic destroys technology is he didn't want Harry Dresden have a cell phone.
It seems appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm obviously on the internet in 30 different places. There are lists of how things would be different if they had cell phones, and if Nancy Drew could just immediately call the police,
Right. That
would be over in 2 chapters.
Yeah.
Lola has a lovely comment there.
Right there, nice.
Well, it's obviously her because she's a teenager and she will use all the data.
112% of it, yes.
Yes, and yours too, by the way.
Oh yeah,
Nancy Drew and 5%. The last chapter is called 5%.
So
have that. That's
I like that idea.
Jessica, which I think we've talked about, when you both discovered Nancy Drew. I would say, ask you now, what is either your favorite Nancy Drew story, book, TV, movie, whatever, and what is it about it that catches you?
Now, see,
And
this is
here after this, so be ready.
Okay. So I'll be really honest. I've been digging back and trying to remember what my favorite was as a kid. I'm really fond of The Hidden Staircase. One, because I like that kind of thing. I like the idea of sneaking around and having hidden staircases. But it was just, for me as a kid, I can remember just being fascinated with just the way the whole thing played out. And I'm trying to remember because it's been a long time since I was 9 years old. A long time. I loved that you've got this mysterious old house. You've got this plot going on. She's figuring it out. The girl is figuring it out. And I think that's what always drew me to pretty much all of the series is this girl is figuring this stuff out. She's not depending on other people. She's doing it herself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's what drew me overall to the series. And that's my favorite book. Drew me, ha.
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
Lean.
Nadine.
I was doing the same thing of trying to remember which one was my favorite. I actually
Gary can come back. Fine.
Yeah, there you are, Gary. We actually went back and I borrowed them from the library just to refresh my memory, and I really didn't have a favorite. I think the only one I actually owned was the one of the Dana Girl mysteries. And I just remember, being that bored kid during the summer who went through all her library books, and it was like, well, what else am I going to read? Well, I'll read this one again. So, and again, it was just the being taken into a different world,
Right.
that was outside of my existence of, well, she went to Africa, she went here, she went there. And like you said, it was just, there was always something to capture you, to bring you in and make you wonder, well, what happens next? She's down the well. How does she get out? How does she figure this out? And that was part of it, is that she figured it out on her own. She was observant. And I think that brought an aspect to girls that before this wasn't available in literature.
Right.
Were there continuing plot lines throughout the series, or was it mostly standalone stuff?
I believe most of it was standalone. There was a few things that followed through, mostly characters.
Mm-hmm.
And the only relationship that really developed, but it wasn't like fully developed because it was a romantic relationship, was her relationship with Ned, her boyfriend.
Okay.
And that continued. There were certain aspects, you can expect that there was going to be, for instance, a scene at home where Hannah brings her cookies. You'd expect that there was going to be a discussion between the girls about, Nancy, you shouldn't do this, but I'm going to anyway, so screw that, or Nancy's in danger, let's go get Ned now because she's done something. They won't say this, but she's done something stupid. You need to come help her. She's gone off on her own again.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as continuing plot line, I don't think so. Nadine may remember something different.
I don't remember. I remember, like you, the continuation of characters, but not any plot. And I think there was also usually right near the very end of the story, there would be some reference to, Nancy was marvelous in solving the mystery of the ticking clock or whatever.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. I think I can remember trying to think about putting plot in that wasn't there. Maybe I'm imagining that, but I think I like to imagine what happened between the stories. I did that with a lot of things because,
Mm-hmm.
Nerds.
Yeah.
Joe, Suzanne has a question for the panel.
Oh, let me find it.
9:30.
Oh, look at that.
No.
Oh, man.
Well, Suzanne, you'll have to leave a comment about him, and we'll read it on the air. Then right after that, Sherman has a question that I find interesting.
Oh, I don't know who that is. Would Encyclopedia Brown help Nancy or be her rival? Didn't they bring problems to Encyclopedia Brown?
Usually.
I think maybe Nancy might drop into his house and say, so I've got this question. I know nothing about this subject. Help me. And he would have the answer.
And then she'd have to pay him a quarter.
Yeah. Sidekick, maybe. Rivals, probably not. Not unless he was older. and he decided to be a smart butt.
Yeah.
Which he would. He would do that. He would do that.
Young hipster Encyclopedia Brown. Call me Psych. You call me Psych. I'm Psych.
I would read that. I would read that all day long.
Actually, yeah. I learned from Encyclopedia Brown that pigs cannot look up, and that for some reason that is the only thing that has stuck with me out of all my Encyclopedia Brown reading.
Well, there you go.
Because there was a whole thing about the dirty, awful kid in town, the bully, whoever it was, in an Encyclopedia Brown book was bragging about flying in a helicopter on a helicopter ride, and he saw the pigs at some farm looking up at him. And then the end result was Encyclopedia Brown saying to him, "You're lying. Pigs can't look up, you horrible person." And I'm guessing then he shot him. I don't think that's but
I can see Encyclopedia Brown growing up to be a bit of a psychopath. It just I can just see this happening because he already has the idea that he is smarter than everybody else around him, which he proves to be true. But you grow up thinking you're smarter than everybody else, and it just leads to terrible things. I think.
You become Dragon Con track directors.
It's not what happens. Okay.
100%. That explains a lot, Gary.
Yeah, the main thing I learned from Encyclopedia Brown was to find yourself a really big, strong girl who can keep the bad guys from beating you up.
That is correct.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
Let's see. Somebody. What?
Oh, there's a good.
The Nancy Drew sleuth book, Clues to Good Sleuthing. Did any of you guys ever encounter that?
No.
I don't remember that. That may have cut. It's 1979. By that point, I think I'd graduated to Agatha Christie. And Miss Marple by that point.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you both say is what has kept her? I mean, there are a lot of characters that were created 90 years ago that are kind of like forgotten. Like, I'm trying to think of them, but I can't because they've been forgotten.
Yeah.
What is it you think about Nancy that keeps her relevant?
In some respects, she was ahead of her times. You know, if you think back to the 30s, there weren't a lot of women who had their own vehicle, you know, whether or not their father had money or not. At that point in time, in the 30s, even career-wise, women were looking at either being nurses, maybe like a stenographer or a secretary or something. And, you know, you were more or less on the track to being a homemaker, a wife, and a mother. So in some respects, she was ahead of her time. And I think that carried on through where she was this independent woman. Like you said, she didn't have to rely on the man to come in and help her solve it. She solved it on her own. And you know, there has been some criticism out there because of the way things were written in the early 30s and 40s that were seen as racist. But, you know, I was thinking back, trying to remember, well, what other series were in that era or, you know, the early 1900s, 20s. And again, you know, I inherited some books from my grandmother, and I think there were the Elsie series. And I didn't have time to go back and read them, but they were almost sickeningly syrupy sweet. They weren't believable. You know, she was sort of ultra religious and this pious thing that, you know, she was almost unrealistic. Where I think Nancy Drew is more realistic and more believable, and I think that is carried through all these 90 years.
Our friend Darren made a good point. Jessica, what book, you mentioned that you graduated to Agatha Christie. So what was the transition period like? Did you just go from did you go from the teenage girls to the crusty old ladies? How did that happen?
I had a friend from church, and she found out that I was interested in mysteries, and she's like, well, I've got these books here. And of course I was reading everything at that point and devouring as much as I could. And I think maybe I was 10 or 11, and she handed me, what was it? I think it was 10 Little Indians. Oh. And yeah, classic. And said, here, read this. And that was, so there wasn't a massive transition. It was more like she handed me the book and I read it, and it was small, like a Nancy Drew book. So of course I went through it pretty quickly, and then I was hooked. I liked the writing. I liked Miss Marple. I wanted to read more. I didn't completely leave Nancy, I don't think, for another year or two, but it was definitely different because, of course, there's murder involved rather than just little mysteries for a teenage girl to solve. So I don't know that there was like a massive transition. There was just that book, and then suddenly I was reading Miss Marple.
Well, what I meant to ask this, and like we often do, I forgot. What about Ned, the boyfriend? How did he avoid the Steve Trevor issue? What did Nancy Drew have to rescue him all the time, or the negative of that he didn't have to come in and rescue her, did he? I mean, what was that? How did they balance that?
I've been trying to remember, and a lot of times he was on the periphery.
Good.
And by the time that something really stupid had happened, where she got kidnapped or anything, she'd already figured it out by the time he'd get there.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Nice.
There was no Steve Trevor crap going on. I don't think she rescued him. I don't remember him being rescued, because most of the time she kind of kept him out of the business, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, he was
kind of one-dimensional. Yeah.
You were almost like the muscle in the background.
Yeah. Very one-dimensional, kind of boring. I never understood what she saw in him, honestly, because he's boring. Mm-hmm. She's so smart, and he's just boring.
He was worse. He was like...
Yes. Nice. He wasn't as cute as Ken, though. Ken's cuter.
That is true. That is true. Ken had the turtlenecks and the jackets and
the fuzzy hair. I mean, just hair. Fuzzy hair.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you think that Nancy Drew is very much, I think, considered a young adult series? Do you think it matters when someone runs into Nancy Drew? I mean, do you think it's something that adults can go back and read, or is it really more of that you need to hit it at that peak 8 to 9 or age?
You just read some, Nadyne, so I mean.
I was trying to think. Well, because I was rekindling my childhood, so but no, I enjoyed them. They were an easy read. I could easily do one in, a couple of hours max. But yeah, I think if you introduce them at that preteen, you could easily transfer into adults.
So you would say that definitely, if you were trying to encourage reading habits in a child, this would be a good series to drop on them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I dropped it on my daughter, and of course she went on quickly to other things because bright kid. But yeah, she had that Nancy Drew moment, and I'm glad, because I think it really helped keep her interested in reading. It was a step.
I just found the Nancy Drew's the name of the series that my daughter read. It was Nancy Drew and the Clue Crew.
I remember when that came out. I did not see it, read it, but I remember when it came out. Yeah.
They aged her backwards. She was an 8-year-old in elementary school, which was about the age that my daughter was when she read them. And Nancy Drew, George Fane, and Bess Marvin were all 8-year-olds.
Oh.
And hijinks ensued. Now, I've kind of mentioned them, or maybe I think we all have. What differentiated or made Nancy Drew better or worse? I think better than the Hardy Boys, because you guys are still talking about Nancy Drew today, and I wouldn't say that I was ever a giant Hardy Boys fan. I read them, but nothing really stuck to me about them.
I think the mysteries were better. I think the storylines were better. Having read some, because I picked up some Hardy Boys, and I'm like, okay, so since they're pairing them on television, let me see what's going on with this series.
Well, they were the same publisher, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they were the same publisher, but the storylines just, I don't know. I just didn't find them as engaging. Between the two of them, I would much rather have a Nancy Drew novel. And she was just much more interesting than they were. I always thought she was smarter than they were, too, but that was just me.
Yeah. Well, you see, if I was a person who had done any sort of research, I would know the answer to this question that I'm going to throw at the two of you. So who did come first? Was it the Hardy Boys or was it Nancy Drew?
Hardy Boys.
Okay.
Okay.
Now,
I wasn't
did she
sure
get introduced in the Hardy Boys and then she got spun off on her own?
No,
or?
what the publisher found was that girls were reading the Hardy Boys. So they decided that they should go ahead and write for girls.
Duh! It's only half of humanity. Good job.
Right.
Yeah.
Good job, everybody. Back in 1930. No, the Hardy Boys. I just never. I don't know. I wonder. I think the crossover happened just because of the TV show.
I think so, because I don't think there was a novel where they crossed over that I can recall.
No.
Yeah, I think they crossed over in the movies.
Yeah. You see, and I read Nancy Drew and I liked her, but I never got into the Hardy Boys myself. That's a whole other panel. But as one of our Facebook users who didn't approve their name, so I don't know who you are, so you always have to tell StreamYard your name. I was a Three Investigators kid.
They were good too, yeah.
There was just something about their mysteries caught me better. I loved their hideout in the junkyard. And as a horror kid, Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah. Wasn't there a supernatural air to those mysteries too, though? I'm trying to remember because I've read them.
They always had it was very Scooby-Doo. It was like, there might actually be, and then it was always, no, it was just some guy with a projector and a fog machine or something.
Yeah.
My favorite being the one, there was a crystal dog sculpture that got stolen, and they could not figure out where it got hid, and then it turned out the thief, because it was a clear crystal statue, put it in the pool.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I was like, that's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, as our Facebook user says, fake supernatural. So
Okay, it turns out that the crossovers did first happen in the TV show, and then to capitalize on that, like they did with everything, they did novelizations from 77 to 79.
That's right.
And then let's see. And then there was one in 1988. And it was called the Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys Super Mystery. And they did a series of 36 of, now I approve of Nancy having the top billing, apparently, in all of these. So that's cool. And apparently the Hardy Boys in the aforementioned video games that I don't know if we need to play. Apparently the Hardy Boys are in all of those. But Nancy Drew, they're the Nancy Drew games, and the Hardys are just guest stars. So up yours, Joe and Frank. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you gotta have. Yeah, you gotta have. Yeah, you gotta have guest stars. You can't have. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, it turns out. Well, the Hardy Boys did get their own game in 2008, but only once. So,
because they're boring.
Thank you. Have you guys seen? I believe there was a movie with Emma Roberts in 2007.
Yeah.
How was that?
I thought it was cute. I took my daughter, I think, and we went and we had a good time. And there were some fun moments. I don't think I've ever revisited the movie, but it was pretty cute. I was pretty pleased at some of the nods they made to the series and that sort of thing. But it was cute.
Little blue roadster.
Yeah.
Oh, they did. Okay, so they kind of did callbacks to the book stuff for you guys, the hardcore book fans, to go,
yeah,
good stuff. There was, I'm going back to a comment that somebody made that I'm trying to find, but let's see here. Okay, okay, the CW show. Okay, here's the quote that I was looking for from our friend Lola. Don't watch the CW. I haven't, but I've considered it. I just I don't know anything. I know I was disappointed. There was a Nancy Drew pilot that's probably on YouTube somewhere from a couple of years ago, starring Sarah Shahi from Person of Interest and other places, and she was a non-white Nancy Drew, and that was going to be the show. And then no network went for that. So then the maybe more traditional Nancy Drew is the character on the current CW show. And then I say the more traditional, but apparently there's some CW network style chicanery going on in that show that you didn't have in the preteen novels of 1930. That would be my guess. So what does Nancy Drew have to do to last another 90 years? Do you guys think? Is the I think the show may have already been canceled. And nope, I stand corrected. The show is happening for another season. But is that how does Nancy Drew stay in business for another 90 years?
I think one way is for moms or parents to keep passing it to their kids. You know, it's that whole share the idea and pass it down. Keep talking about it. I don't know that the television shows are going to do anything to help the series stay alive, but the fact that it's been around since the 30s and people are still talking about it in 2020, you know, how does that happen? Because mom read it and mom passes it down to her girl or her children and says, hey, read this because it's good, because the writing's good, because I want you to learn about this character because she's important to me. She made a difference in my life. And so that kid grows up and goes, hey, you know, read this. And it goes on. The stories stand, and they've stood since the 30s and even after the changes in the 50s, because the stories and the characters are solid. They're good. Children identify with them. They look at these and, you know, like Nadyne and I, we both are like, these are books that show us a life that maybe we don't have, but boy, it'd be cool if we did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in Jessica, you are a writer. What have you written Nancy Drew-ish stories or characters?
I haven't, and
will you now?
No, I say that. I say I haven't. My takeaway as a writer is that I write strong female characters. So the book, my first book, lead character is a lady detective in the 1900s. Kate, and she's based on, well, she is Kate Warren, the first female detective at Pinkerton's.
Oh.
And I can see a lot of the strengths that I put into Kate. My Kate, I can see how maybe Nancy influenced that decision to have a female detective instead of going the male route and going, well, it's the 1900s, so it's obviously going to be a male detective.
Right.
No, why? And Nancy taught me it doesn't have to be a guy, and a woman can solve mysteries and face monsters and be just as powerful as any male character. So maybe that's the influence. So maybe I have and just didn't realize it.
See?
Mm-hmm.
And now in your next thing, just overtly, just call her, just do a Nancy Drew story without saying Nancy Drew. Just completely change her name and say, oh yeah, it's totally
Totally new.
independent of Nancy Drew. I don't know what you're talking about.
Her name is Natalie Drawn.
Yes,
See?
yes.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So she's been around for 90 years. She's obviously been an influence. Who do you think are the better imitators, or in that same vein that she, as would you say? Like if someone like Nancy Drew, would you recommend then Jessica Fletcher or Veronica Mars or?
Probably Veronica Mars. I mean, I like Jessica Fletcher,
Nice.
but I mean, for someone who's younger, perhaps she's not someone that, if you've got a younger reader or a younger viewer, are they going to identify with this little old lady solving? Of course, I identified with Miss Marple, so who knows? You know, maybe both are excellent.
I think Veronica Mars may be the closest.
I think so. I think she's the closest heir apparent to the Nancy Drew throne, if you will.
Your thoughts, Nadine?
I'm not
Like,
coming.
who did you graduate to after Nancy Drew?
Oh, you see, I went down a different route. I went into sci-fi.
Well, see, I went there too. I was
Yeah.
doing both. I was doing sci-fi and mystery at the same time.
Mhm.
So while I was reading Miss Marple, I was also reading Ray Bradbury and taking in the Martian Chronicles, which I still read like every few years. Just go back through and read that.
Mhm. Was Veronica Holt, was she mystery? I'm trying to remember because I read her too.
Victoria Holt. She was Gothic mystery. Yeah.
Gothic mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read her too. My grandmother introduced me to her.
Mm-hmm.
What about, let's see, what are there female mystery series currently happening right now that, now, of course, who knows? In 90 years, we're going to be reading them with our brain helmets, and they're going to be
Virtual, and you'll experience them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to read.
The Hidden Staircase.
Ooh.
Yeah.
They'll be going with the staircase.
But Aurora Teagarden, is that a Hallmark movie? What are those? Hang on, somebody mentioned those. Okay, yeah, Hallmark Mystery is an Aurora Teagarden is a Hallmark mystery movie series.
Okay.
Okay.
So maybe there's that. Maybe the Hallmark mystery series are one of the locations for female detectives. I don't know.
Yeah.
There've been plenty there but it's on television, not really movies. Veronica Mars, I think, is the top one. The issue, I think, is not only with a Nancy Drew thing, you have to sell the teenage part, and you also have to sell the detective part.
Right.
It's not one or the other.
Mhm.
And I think that the current Nancy Drew show may be, well, I don't think she's a teenager in that, but they're focusing maybe too much on the teenage part or the non-detective stuff and neglecting the...
Well, it is a CW show.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think there's a supernatural element to it too that's not true. I've not watched the series. I've been kind of hesitant based on the ads and based on what I've seen, watching other CW shows and then seeing the ads for the episodes coming up. I'm just like, I just don't know if I'm going to like this. Because you're right. It seems like it's focusing more on the soap opera teenage crap and not enough on what actually she should be doing.
Mhm.
Okay. Apparently, according to our buddy Lola, Aurora Tea Garden is written by Charlene Harris.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so she's out there, and so they. So what are you guys, Jessica and Nadyne? What are you guys reading right now? It doesn't have to be girl detective things.
Oh, okay. I'm reading Andy Davidson's Boatman's Daughter, which is it's Southern Gothic horror, which for me is close to my heart. I love swampy monster kind of things, and this is what this is. It's excellent. It's poetic. It's beautiful. Hey, Andy, I love you. You can send the check later. No, he's really terrific. And if you haven't read Andy, you really need to. He's fantastic.
How about you?
What are you?
Oh, I can't think of her first name, but the last name is Moss, Maas. That whole, she's more or less like she's the thief and a warrior and an assassin. I think it's supposed to be young adult, but I find it very interesting. And so I'm caught up in that series right now.
Sarah J. Moss.
Sarah J. Moss, that's right.
Okay.
She's got like 12, and a lot of books. Well, that's good. I think today in 2020, it's, and Gary, I think you and I have discussed this before. It's easier.
I've never talked to you before in my life.
What? Who are you? What have you done with? It's easier now to discover new authors thanks to the interwebs and the downloading and the Kindle and that kind of thing. So there's tons of people out there, and probably a lot of Nancy Drew stuff is available Kindle-wise. So it's not, you don't just have to head to your library like we all did when we were youths. You can find this stuff easily, and that's a very good thing.
It just struck me as Janet Ivanovich with her Stephanie Plum series is sort of the detective girl for women adults.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that there you go. There you go. So
we're kind of running low on time. So Jessica and Nadyne, is there any particular Nancy Drew fact or iteration or just the thing about her that you wanted to talk about that we hadn't touched on yet?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. She was just very accomplished, but it was believable. And I think there was a humility to her that made her seem believable. She was a nice person. She was the type of person that you go, I could be friends with her. I wish I lived next door. I wish I lived in town with her so we could be friends and we could hang out and I could explore all these things with her and enjoy these mysteries.
Right. I would agree. She's good without being sappy.
Mhm.
I think that's important. She's not sappy. She's not overly. What's the word I'm trying to say? She's
Sentimental?
good. She's not overly sentimental. That's a good way to look at it.
Okay.
There's not a sentimentality to the fact that this is a female, and she's got to be just so perfect. She is perfect, but not in a way that's like Nadyne said, not believable. She's very believable. She's your next door neighbor. She's the girl you want to be or want to be friends with. Definitely.
Mhm.
She's aspirational that you can reach, not that perfect that you'll never be able to compare up to.
Yeah.
True.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
That is, I think that's a good place to leave it. I think that the fact that Nancy Drew is still happening, that they're still finding things about her to do, and of course there's a lot of bleak periods publishing wise in the Nancy Drew history, but the originals are still out there, and that's cool. Those aren't going to go away. And so maybe what happens is somebody stumbles across the new show or the Emma Roberts movie or, the old stuff from the 70s, and they go and grab the books or those graphic novels or the Nancy Drew and the Clue Crew stuff. The fact is there's tons of Nancy Drew stuff and tons of female authors like yourself, Jessica, who are out there influenced by Nancy and are taking care of business today.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica and Nadyne, thank you. Jessica, you told me, I think, before we went on the air, this was your very first convention panel.
Yes, sir.
So how'd it go?
I had so much fun. I was very nervous about this because I'm like, I'm trying to remember things, and I was very nervous. And then you said, we're just going to go have fun. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. So
Yeah,
it was great.
This for us, it's the standard. You're sitting around with your nerd friends talking. Just we have an audience,
Right.
Yeah.
and it's a lot less nervous inducing than at an actual convention because we can't see them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's when you look out and you see those 30 people staring at you, you start to go, wait, do I want to be up here?
Well, and I imagine, for somebody like me, I can see myself questioning, should I even be here? Am I in the right place?
There have been quite a few panels where I've sat down and I'm at the end and like introduce themselves and their credits, and they introduce themselves. And I actually teach drama at Harvard. Why am I here? Why am I at the table? I should be at what? Okay. Hi, I'm a guy.
I'm some idiot. You've never heard of me, but here's the rest of the cast of Star Trek Enterprise.
Yeah.
That Doreen Bruce guy keeps heckling us, apparently.
Oh, please.
We need to figure out who this guy is and give him what for.
Nadyne, I apologize for you having to live with him. And he's not on the panel right now to
defend himself.
So pew pew right back.
All right, so Nadyne, if people were interested in any of your thoughts or opinions, where, if they could, find you on the internet?
Oh,
or are you just like
you could have given me a heads up.
Oh wow.
No, I don't have a profile out there other than just email. So.
Nice.
Oh, how about you, Jessica? You said you write books?
Yes. I do not have a website yet, but I do have a Facebook presence. You can find me with my actual name, which is on the screen. I also have Jessica Nettles books, but you have to request to get in right now. So
and where can they buy you on Amazon or other?
They cannot buy me on Amazon yet.
Okay.
2021. However, there are stories that are floating around on the internet that you can find. My last published story on the interwebs was Gut Wrench Journal. Let's see, I think it's winter 2019. I think that's right. And there's a short story there that's a little creepy and a little southern and
Neat.
a whole lot undead. So
Oh,
go check it out.
So Falstaff Books has you said in 2021, are
Yes.
you publishing with Falstaff?
Yes. Yes.
Our buddies, we have a lot of buddies who who publish with those guys, Bobby Nash, Michael Williams, James Palmer, and I'm one of their copy
Michael
editors.
Williamson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know all of these dudes. They're
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, you welcome to the Classic Track panel, Nadyne and Jessica, and we're going to get you guys back very soon. We'll find something else for everybody to talk about, and thank you guys very, very much, Gary. Closing thoughts? No, we got nothing. Okay.
Closing thoughts we have is keep watching. We have not scheduled next week's panel yet, but there are more panels. We will be doing these every Thursday up until DragonCon, and then
probably after.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
DragonCon is all virtual this year, and we were doing it 3 months ago, but that's neither here nor there. I don't want to say, Gary, that we are revolutionists or that we lead the pack in any way or that everyone should follow our example.
We wouldn't say that.
We'll
let other people say that.
We wouldn't say it, but we would. I'm just going to put it out there. We should put it out.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so when DragonCon does happen, they're still ironing out the details. You can count on 3 pre-recorded DragonCon panels that will go into the DragonCon feed, however they lay that out. But Joe and I will also be doing our own panels over the weekend as well. Not counter programming. God, I don't want people to think that's what's happening. It's just Joe and I already came up with a schedule for this year, and by God, we're going to use it somewhere.
We're going to find some way to use it. But Nadyne, Jessica, Gary, thank you guys very, very much.
Thank you.
We love doing these. We will see you next week when Gary Mitchell will say,
but how do they get the pits out?
And thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.